He built up probably what he dreamt of as the single biggest center for knowledge in India, the Vishwabharati University, with very pioneering thoughts and ideas, but it didn't really go in the direction which he thought. He thought it would be something that would be path-breaking in the world, still a very attractive place. A lot of people go there, his thoughts are unique, but it hasn't kept up with its vision in the same way. Tagore is not around, his associates are not around, but somehow it just kind of perished. The third Indian movement, which has been relatively successful, is the Ramakrishna Vivekananda movement. Swami Vivekananda created history, so I'll just come to this. The gentleman is not here today, but I'll quickly cover this. So, this is the Ramakrishna Mission, Loka Shiksha Parishad. Loka Shiksha means education, literally means education of the people. Okay? So largely vocational training, something that we still desperately need in our country. We don't respect it much, but without that, it won't happen. So this is the oldest of the modern NGOs in India. Ramakrishna was a Hindu saint, if I may put it very quickly and bluntly. He died in 1886, and his principal disciple Vivekananda became a wandering monk, and in 1893 he went to the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago, and he started this speech with Sisters and Brothers of America. Everybody stood up, applauded, whatever. Having said that, in the course of his travels in the West, in America and in Europe, he raised a lot of money with the vision to improve the lot of India's downtrodden. This is something which every Indian knows. He founded the first Vedanta Society. He founded the Ramakrishna Mission on 1st May 1897, 4 years later. He died very young, at the age of 39, but with the funds that he got from all his lectures, with his friends in Europe and America, he started this movement to help India's downtrodden. That's the basic thing. So you see this focus, the ignorant Indian, the poor and destined Indian, the Brahmin, the pariah Indian is my brother. Okay? So the ideals was for one's own liberation and the welfare of the world at large. This is a picture of Vivekananda. What is the scope of the Ramakrishna Mission? All of these, very much you saw it in the first presentation itself. So all of this is there. Alright. The scale is much bigger than the people that you see. These are pictures over the years of their work, primarily in disaster management, flood relief, all these kinds of things. Alright. This is where they were very active. This is distribution of clothes after floods to villagers, blankets in winter, this kind of thing. And this is a congregation in Belur Math of some of their monks, which is, you can see it's a large one. Alright, now what happens currently? They have 218 branch centers in the globe, 174 branches in India, 44 branch centers elsewhere. Okay? And this place in Narendrapur is one of the many branch centers. So we'll focus on this. This one was established as a center with 200 acres of land. It's in Godia, in South Calcutta. So this is a picture. And now this is the Center for Development or Loka Shiksha, Vocational Training Center. What do they do? Very quickly, they talk about service to mankind as service to God. They focus on women, youth and child. And again, this is their area of work. You see, the focus is very those lines. How do they fund? First is both state and central government. Basically, India very much resonates with this message, so they have no enemies regardless of the political dispensation. Both West Bengal state government and the union government help them. International agencies like UNESCO, UNDP, UNICEF, WHO, Ford Foundation, they help. National agencies like NABARD, etc., CAPARD help them. Corporate sector, particularly public sector enterprises help them. Non-resident funding help them. Own resources basically means donations to the cause which are unconditional. What is the difference from others? And I'll quickly stop there. One is because of its spiritual nature, it touches base with a large number of Indians, resonates with many, many Indians. sometimes even cutting across religious barriers. All right? So acceptability at grass level, and therefore the credibility is huge. So the corpus of the organization and funding is huge, huge, huge. What are the things that I have seen personally firsthand from Ramakrishna Mission, which is probably not there in many NGOs? One is the size of the organization. The size is overwhelming. Most of them are monks, so therefore they are kind of dedicated to the cause, like any Christian missionary organization, like the church, like missionaries of charity. But what else? Huge level of public relations. Their understanding of government policies, grants available, new schemes floated by the government. There is a whole cell of people who know every single government funding scheme, top to bottom, bottom to top. Secondly, because it's a religious organization, their disciples are posted in many key government positions. So they are willing to help to make sure that they can access those grants. The other thing is, which I hesitate to say but I need to say, is that they are ruthless towards dissent. Time and again, for various small and big reasons, people have opposed the mission. They have rode roughshod, they've expelled them, and they've made sure that they carry on. The incidental, why this regulatory thing, I want to connect with that regulatory framework statement of Annapurna Mahila Mandal. Swami Vivekananda wrote their constitution before 1897 when it was founded. A friend of mine revised it just 5 years ago. What is the extent of time? 115 years. So 115 years the constitution of the Ramakrishna Mission was so robust, it needed no recontextualization. So Vivekananda's single biggest contribution to the mission, or two biggest ones, was create the initial fund corpus, provide the mission and the vision, and the third thing is basically make sure that the regulatory framework was so robust, it wouldn't need to be revisited for 115 years. 5 years ago, some small tinkering has happened. The guy I know is very proud that after Swami Vivekananda is the first, he's a lawyer, he revisited it. Vivekananda was no lawyer. So this is another thing. Now, therefore, what are the lessons that we learned? So, how can an NGO be registered? This is a fundamental question. Basically, three types. It can be a trust. A trust means few members, and few members decide, and when somebody dies, they co-opt a new member. A society is many members which elect every year their governing body. Alright? And a Section 25 company, which is essentially a not-for-profit company. Today, the social enterprise is extended the definition also to include for-profit. For-profit with, which doesn't qualify legally under Section 25. The motives are altruistic, but technically it is a for-profit. So, therefore, these are just some things, you need to write the name, the purpose, organizational meetings, who can be a member, financial reporting. So these are not so important, but anyway. Now, one of the key differences between an NGO and a corporate is the board of the NGO usually comprises of people who are external to the NGO. You look at most NGOs, barring maybe religious ones, most of them, their principal occupation is something else. They are people, important people in society, retired civil servants, retired bureaucrats, senior company functionaries who've retired, they come and occupy with their own ideas. In a company, on the contrary, the majority is people who've risen through the ranks, executive members in the board, and they have some independent board members. who are nominated by government as a result of shareholding or whatever, or some other. So they're independent, but they by and large follow the wisdom of the core functionaries who have risen through the ranks or who are appointed by the government. Therefore, there is a big problem with an NGO is that the board is overwhelmingly constituted by people who think no end of themselves, but who are not involved in the day-to-day functioning of the NGO. This is a big issue, at least here in India. So, a good and effective NGO board familiarizes its target constituents with the activities of the NGO. Very tough, because the board members, unless they are very passionate, would not even know what these guys do from morning to night. Assists in distributing responsibilities among the team members within the NGO organization, again for which an understanding of the NGO work, an intricate one, is important. So usually it has a president, a secretary, treasurer, rotating or renewable, and people could cease to be a member, whatever. If they don't have time, if they resign, if they become insolvent, if they kind of have Alzheimer's or something like this, so these kinds of issues. A very important part of an NGO's work is capacity building. Something far more important than in corporates. Why? Because most NGOs have a huge number of volunteers. As you might have noticed in the earlier presentation, very few people are employed. So these volunteers or part-time workers need to be continuously skilled and sensitized to the kind of work the NGO does. So it's very nice to say you should do this, you should do that, you should do that. So the stuff that you guys will be doing with the NGOs, realize that even to translate it into their context, those guys will need training. In their language, it's called capacity building. Alright? So the concept is that of organizational development, organizational effectiveness, organizational performance management in for-profits. But it's a huge amount of work because these people are either part-timers or volunteers or simply not educated enough in the direction that would allow these kinds of things. So it's a big job. So there can be many issues here. So that is there. Every NGO, this doesn't always happen, but I'm just stating the point. Every NGO should review its own performance. All right. Annual reports is something very important. Not every NGO does it. This is very important. In India, strangely enough, trusts are not monitored very strictly. Societies are. There's a registrar of societies. But the registrar of societies, if you go to them, they will tell you that they very often lost the memorandum of association, the rules and regulations. It's all lost. Can't easily find it. But what sticks around is the financials. One place where NGOs get very much tied to is the income tax exemption bit. So income tax is very, very keen to scrutinize and see that is this organization worthy of continuing with the tax exemption that it enjoys. So there they're very particular, but the reporting of the work is poorer than the reporting of the financials. Hence I'm just saying this. Website is very important. Most of these organizations cannot afford newspaper advertisements. So website is a very, very powerful tool, and you might have noticed that many NGOs actually suggested to you to help them improve their website. So that's the reason. Internal reviews are very important. More important than board reviews. For the reason that I gave you, that board members are often external to the organization. But internal reviews are extremely important. Feedback from clientele, which means beneficiaries. This is very critical because very often it may mean that the money is being spent in a way that is not really benefiting the beneficiaries to the extent intended. Program monitoring is extremely important because very often it implies that you're spending somebody else's money who will come back and check what you're doing. So unless you monitor it yourselves, it's very important. So that's what the point I come to now. Periodic audit by donors. This is a very important issue. Now, what is the delivery system of NGOs? You talked extensively about it in Annapurna Mahila Mandal. Usual problems that plague it are smallness of scale. It's usually very small. So scale limits the efficiency of the whole thing. Extreme talent intensiveness, alright? Limited replicability, because very often it's contextualized in a region, in a place, in very peculiar situations. It's very difficult to replicate exactly that somewhere else. So you'll find when you work with NGOs that if you want to replicate that, you cannot do exactly that. Narayana Health is a different story. The moment you talk about Touch World, replicating Touch World in Delhi will not mean doing exactly the same things Calcutta did, because social factors are different. Dependence on the founder or leader, this is something that we repeatedly see. Donor driven in many instances, hence uncertainty on continuity. So the real test lies in whether the NGO can sustain its interventions, alright? And that means creating a portfolio of donors and a portfolio of programs or a program of income generation. So usually 2 out of the 3, at the very least, if not 3 of the 3. Okay? So if they do only one thing, they won't survive in many cases. So this is just a comparison of how governance happens in for-profits and not-for-profits. So you can see it in terms of mission, measures, leadership, board composition, and board members. All right. So look at this bit. I just want to show you because we talked about this. Look at the board composition. In for-profits, it's small. Here it's large. Here it's relatively limited in scope. Here it's vital but can get out of control. Alright? Nominating committee relatively inactive. Here it's constantly at work. And here diverse profiles often incorporating potential financial donors, antisocial hours, high turnover, and expected to donate. So you look at this. This is very interesting in looking at not-for-profit governance. And last but not least, if you look at the social enterprise spectrum, you are talking of organizations that are between the purely philanthropic and purely commercial. Because as I told you to start with, it ranges from the absolutely philanthropic, the missionaries of charity, to organizations which can almost be termed for-profit. Okay? So the whole thing is in the beginning, in the middle. Alright? So that's it really. It's a big challenge managing the NGO organization. In summary, I'll tell you this: it's easy to start. It's extremely difficult to sustain, particularly because of the unpredictability of funds. How do you source them? Also the unpredictability of leadership, because you cannot presume, since it doesn't generate money, it doesn't generate that circle of people who are fed by the NGO. So unless the founder or the person who comes immediately after, in this case Dr. Samant, plans that income generation bit very carefully, the NGO perishes at large. Then the core vision perishes. But therein lies the problem. Very often the volunteers, the workers resent that because they say this is disconnected with the cause for which the NGO was set up. So there's an inbuilt dissonance between trying to earn money for the NGO and the whole reason for why the NGO came into existence. Alright? We'll stop there. You probably now, with your exposure to so many NGOs, understand a little bit of what I'm saying, because each of these statements are very loaded. But in case you have difficulties understanding anything, you can always refer back. Okay? Thank you very much and have a happy holidays.